thank you so much for joining me on the Salon Owners Collective podcast. Very pleased to have you here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And of course, it's wonderful to be able to speak from London all the way back to New Zealand.
Well, let's start with that, Patrick. Why don't you start with who are you? Where are you? Where did you come from and what do you do?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm here in London, so this is my home. It's been my home for 34 years, but I'm originally from New Zealand, and I'm from a little city called New Plymouth in Taranaki. Now, for a lot of you Wellingtonians and Aucklanders and people around New Zealand, many of you may have heard of it, some of you may have traveled to it, but I adore it. It is just one of the most wonderful little places in New Zealand, and interestingly, Larissa, it just won Best Little Small City of 75,000 or 80,000 in the world. So
I did not know this.
Yes, it got first or second place, so that was pretty cool. I think it's first place, but I might be wrong there. Hey, so I'm from New Zealand. I understand the transition from New Zealand to London. I understand the transition that many hairdressers make when they're trying to look at a bigger career outside of where they're from. So as a New Zealander who is now hailed as one of the world's leading long hair specialists, and I've been living here for 34 years, and I've had a global brand for over 30 years, darling, the floor is open. You talk to me and you pick my brains. Yeah. Hopefully someone out there will be listening and be inspired. Well,
I'm hoping the same. I know the same. Well, let's start with, how did you get into this industry? Where did you start? Let's start at humble beginnings.
Okay, well, I started in Taranaki originally, obviously. I was trained by a lady many of your listeners may know called Lindsay Loveridge. She was quite iconic in her time. Lindsay, many hairdressers know her and respect her. So Lindsay is my mentor. Fancy having Lindsay as a personal mentor. And she trained me to be a hairdresser. She saw the talent in me long before I knew I had me in that direction. And she sort of molded me and helped me be the best that I could possibly be. You know, I can remember, you'll love this, the very first time I went for an interview with her, and she sort of knew that I liked long hair, and she said, Patrick, just show me what you can do with long hair. And I grabbed a mannequin and I put the mannequin between my legs and the hair grips in my mouth, and I started working. And at the end, I was so proud of what I had done. And she said to me, she said, Patrick, that is really good, but now let's learn how to do it properly. And that was the beginning of a journey that was just unbelievable. So I was trained by her in all the facets of hairdressing: cutting, coloring, long hair, perming, you name it, I did it.
I love it. I really just thought of something right in that moment. And I want to ask the listeners this: how often in an interview do you say to a potential apprentice, show me what you can do? Yeah, I love that. Like, where did we lose that? We say to them, come in for a trial and let's see how good you are behind the broom and see if you know. Oh, listen, and we will discuss this. We are a changing industry, and we are not an industry of do unto others as we had done unto ourselves. So I can talk about that to the cows come home. And you know what? It really is. It's about show me, share with me your passion. Let me see your vision. Let me see who you are as a person. And Lindsay did that in spades, and she was incredible. She always knew how to push our buttons and how to inspire us, and the things that she knew would turn us on to looking at ourselves as hairdressers in a really positive light. Yeah, I love that. So you qualified here in New Zealand. What was the next step?
Yep. So I qualified in New Zealand. Now, I started an adult apprenticeship, which meant that I was accredited 1,000 hours, and it meant that I was that much older. So I was almost 22 when I started hairdressing, which is quite late for a lot of hairdressers. As you know, most start after school at 16, 17. And so by the time I qualified, you know, I was 27, just over 27. Oh, sorry, I was 26. Then I gave Lindsay a year, and I always wanted to travel. And for me, it wasn't the traditional New Zealand, New Plymouth, Auckland, Sydney, stop in Sydney, never go any further. That's it. We're stopped there. That's great, because Sydney is an amazing city and incredible. I had always envisaged I wanted to go further into Europe. I wanted to go to the United Kingdom. I wanted to go to London, and then I wanted to see Europe. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking any hairdresser that stopped in Sydney, because I tell you what, if I stopped in Sydney, I'd probably still be there, because it's a pretty amazing place. Or Auckland, you know, I think everywhere is an amazing space. But for me, it was absolutely logical. With Lindsay's training behind me, it seemed absolutely perfect to go from the small streets of New Plymouth to the large streets of London. And that was just absolutely made up in my mind.
And did you know right from young that long hair was going to be your thing?
I didn't even know I wanted to be a hairdresser. I knew nothing about hair when I was almost 22. Honestly, listen, my life, you couldn't make my life up. I left school with nothing, absolutely nothing, even being told I wouldn't even succeed. You know, I suffered with a tiny little bit of dyslexia, not much. I mean, I can read and write, I can do all the things, but I'm one of those creatives that's very ambidextrous. So I can eat left-handed, I can do things left-handed, I can do things right-handed. So I was incredibly creative. So I was into the painting, drawing, the arts, making, crafting, anything like that. And academically, you know, I mean, on retrospect, you know, when you look back on your life in hindsight, I think, and I'm not pleased, I'm not laying the blame at my teachers. I'm really not. It was a different time. It was a different time. We're looking at the 60s and 70s here. If someone had just taken the time to say to me, Patrick, through English, there's theatre. Through theatre, there's this amazing world that can open up between this and that, and books belong to this, and you can do that. And I was never shown that. And so it never equated to me that what I was dry learning at school actually had an impact on me in the real world. So I left school with nothing, started in a music shop. Luckily, my parents always identified that I was creative. I learned the piano from about the age of 6 or 7. And I started working in Collier's music shop, which is a music shop that was in New Plymouth at the time. It's long since gone. And then I got involved in theatre, amateur theatre, the operatics, little theatre, repertory, and so on, that a lot of New Zealand cities have. And it was through there that I met a gentleman who was leaving the creative department of a window dressing department in a big department store in New Plymouth. And he said, you should try out for this. So I went for an interview. I met them, they loved me. I started working there and they trained me as a visual artist, doing all sorts of merchandising, displays, ticket writing, card writing, show card. Back then there were no computers, so you had to do it all by hand. So I started on that and I adored it. And I created things like Santa's trains for the Christmas parade, or I do all the interior display designs and the things. I won awards, some New Zealand awards for my windows, and I was loving it. And I wanted to learn how to do the wigs for my models and my mannequins. And I also was getting very involved in theatre. And I wanted to start learning how to do long hair in the theatre, because I kind of sort of thought I'd like it. And that's how I became a hairdresser. I went past Lindsay's one day, Lindsay's Salon, because I had a friend that worked there, a lady called Jenny. And I went in to see Jen and I said, Jen, is there a night course that I can do at the Polytech? And she said to me, Patrick, are you interested in dressing? Interested in hairdressing? And I said, oh, I don't know. So I went away back to work. This was a lunch break. Next thing in the afternoon, I got a telephone call from Lindsay saying, Patrick, can I see you tomorrow, please? So I went. Now, I knew Lindsay's mother. She was quite a famed director in our city. Lindsay had watched me on stage and all the productions I'd been doing. She'd watched my window dressing and she called me in for a meeting. And I didn't know what the meeting was about. I just went in. And anyway, at the end of the meeting, she said, Patrick, I want to offer you a job as an apprentice hairdresser. And I kind of went, oh my God, I didn't even see that coming. I don't even know what a role is for, let alone anything else. And I never forget, I rang my mum and dad and I said, Mama, I'm going to become a hairdresser. I've decided today, and I just won an award for window dressing. I just won an award for that and I was doing really well and I loved it. And my dad was quite sort of upset, going, well, Patrick, you're doing so well over there. Why do you think you want to go hairdressing? And my answer really was, Dad, it's a trade. It's a trade. Oh my God, someone's going to teach me and I've got a trade. And that's what really floated my boat. And that sense of I can get a trade. And this is me as a young man. If I could get a trade, I think I could look after myself for the rest of my life. I think I've got something. something special. Unbeknownst to me, of course, not only did I have something special, I had the wheels and the wings and the God knows what to reach probably the highest heights that any hairdresser in the world could reach. So yeah, looking back, it's quite an amazing story, really.
I love that. That's really great, and one that sort of landed on your lap in a way,
Yeah,
unbeknownst to you that it was coming
you
your
know,
way.
I tell you, life can change on a Tuesday,
Yeah,
can't
that's
it?
right. All
This is
right,
not a
let's
gin and
jump.
tonic, by the way, just water.
You could be allowed. It is 7 o'clock in the evening there. Maybe not for
It's
me.
all right.
Let's jump forward a little bit and talk about sort of transition from hairdressing to actually teaching your art.
So I was working, I'd worked at a couple of salons in London, and like all Kiwis, we're great communicators. We don't really look at the class system so much, and we just get on and do it, don't we? And I was approached to work. I was working in a salon in Camden Town. If anybody knows London at all, Camden was incredibly trendy in the 80s, and well, it still is, but in the 80s it was even more so. And I was working in a salon. I was about to leave the salon, and I was going to go on a holiday to Germany to visit some friends there. And anyway, this salon group bought the salon, and they approached me and they said, "Patrick, we'd really like you to work for us." And I said, "Oh, so thank you so much, but no, I'm fine. Thank you very much. I'm going to go freelance. I've got a portfolio I'd been working on. I'd sort of done some guesting with photographers, and I was doing what I wanted to do." And I said, "Thank you so much." I said, "But no, I really am. I've got a plan, and I know what I want to do. I'm going on holiday, and I've got a plan." And he said to me, he said, "Patrick, we've been watching you," and because they were sort of watching the salon that they'd bought during the month that I was working my month out, but I was going to leave. And he said to me, he said, "Go on your holiday." And he said, "When you come back, I'd love you to have a meeting with me. Can we meet up for a meeting? We just talk about things." And I said, "Sure, absolutely. Let's do that." I went away on holiday for probably about 3 or 4 weeks, had no thought whatsoever of meeting with this gentleman. I knew that I had a meeting with him a day after I got back. So on the plane coming back, I pulled out a serviette and I started writing down all the things that I wanted to say at the meeting. Obviously I was going to write this out better when I got home, but I wrote it out, and it was hilarious. Honestly, I wished I had kept this piece of paper. So I get to the meeting, which is in a beautiful hotel down, where is it? Down, I'm trying to think where it was. It was central London, West End, absolutely stunning. Beautiful 5-star hotel. He's sitting there with his beautiful suit on, and we're having sort of a Devonshire tea with all the scones and bits and pieces and stuff. And so he started talking to me about the company, Baker Street. We were down by Baker Street. And so he started sort of talking about the company and things. And then he said, "Patrick, we'd really like you to come and work with us." And I didn't want the job, and I was being very polite. And I said to him, I said, "Listen, I've got some things that I'd like to ask you that would be really important for me before I say yes." And he said to me, I said to him, "I would like £25 an hour." Now, at the time, and I'm God honest gospel, I was making about £2.50 an hour. This is God honest gospel. This is hand on my heart, hand to God. And I said, "I want to make £25 an hour for when I'm working. I said, I want to do all the shows, all the educational forums and so on for the company." They had 35 salons. I said, "Oh, I wanted accommodation. I wanted an apartment in London. I'm happy to pay rent, but I want you to sort out an apartment. I'd just come back from holiday. I needed a place to live." I said, I wanted endless holidays. That seemed like a fantastic idea for a Kiwi. I wanted endless holidays. Whenever I wanted holidays, I wanted holidays. And anyway, he was laughing. There was a couple of other ludicrous things in there I can't remember now. But basically, at the end of the whole thing, he took out a beautiful Mont Blanc pen from his very expensive suit. This pen's probably about £300 or £400. He went click, click. And he looked at the list, and he went tick, 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 tick. "You start tomorrow." He said, "But I will tell you, Patrick, if it doesn't work out after a month, we will say thank you very much and we will let you go." I burst out laughing, and I said to him, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you misunderstand. If it doesn't work out for me, then I think you're gone in a month's time." And that was the beginning of the most incredible ride of my life. And I became the artistic director of not over 35 salons, but 540 salons, including Harrods, 20 in South Africa, 150 in Germany, Denmark, Belgium, South Africa, Ireland, England. And I was the the artistic director over the largest hair company in Europe.
Wow.
How's
Good for
that?
you, because you didn't want the job.
Because I didn't want the job, but I think what they could see in me was this person who was creative, who was honest, who was fun, who was someone that people related to, you know. And because I was training the team in the salon that I was working, only out of the goodness of my heart, because I wanted them to be better. You know, it wasn't something that I was asked to do. It's just something that I did naturally. I always like to share, you know, again, and we'll touch on this later. I think the secret to success in any form is sharing it. You know, you can't hold success. You've got to share it. And Lindsay had given me such a fantastic foundation that when I saw a hairdresser failing in something, I naturally wanted to share how to do it probably in a better way.
I love that. And how long did you hold this position?
Oh my God, I held this position for probably about 4 or 5 years. And we grew. So we had 35 salons and we just grew. I'd go to work on a Monday, we'd bought another 20 salons. I'd go to work on the following Monday, we'd bought a country of salons. And so I was train the trainer. So they had a training team. They had a senior training team and a junior training team. And then I would go and train each of these teams. And then anything to do with media, I would be the front person for media. Any shows that were going on, then I was the front person that would do the show and put the concept together, bring the teams together and do whatever I was going to do. So, and that grew. You know, I remember my business partner, she was head of communications and she was PR for this salon group. And she had a big year planner right beside her table. And I only had 1 or 2 little dots on it. And by the time, probably after a year, it took over her life. This year planner just had a life of its own. It was full. Because of course, because I was a large company, Weller, and that's who I'm with, Weller, said, Patrick, we'd really like you to come and do something for us. And I remember flying to Germany to do something. And they went, wow, oh my goodness, we really like this. And then they spoke to Italy and I went to Italy to do stuff. And then Italy spoke to Argentina and I flew over to Argentina and they spoke to Brazil and I was over to Brazil. And that's how it happened. And from one thing to another, all of a sudden, this tour de force started literally traveling the world. And that's how it happened for me. So countries were like Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Green, Mrs. Brown, except instead of having clients, I had countries.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the actual work that you were doing once you were working for yourself and you went out on your own. How did you settle into long hair specifically? And what does that look like today?
Well, first of all, I started, obviously, when I became the artistic director, it was all about cutting, coloring, perming, and all that. So obviously all of that was there. And I was, you know, I adored cutting and I thought of myself as a good cutter. I loved all the other elements of it. And so I would train everything. And then I remember doing a big show called the Close Show Live, and it was in Birmingham, NEC. And it was for about 15,000 people, 15,000 people. And I was on the main stage and we were booked to do a presentation. And I remember thinking, well, this is not to hairdressers. This is to the consumer. This is to people in fashion, people off the street, so to speak. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to do hair cutting and I'm not going to talk about coloring and so on and so forth. I'm going to do something very, very visual. I'm going to do long hair. And so I developed a technique way back then. We're talking about sort of 1989, 1990. And I started doing some things. And when I finished the show, someone who I respected a great deal, who worked for Weller, he said to me, Patrick, he said, I came back to him and he said, Patrick, I've just watched you on stage. And I've been in this industry something like 35 years. And I have never seen someone do what you just went and did. And I was really surprised because it just came naturally to me and I designed what I was going to do. And he said, I've never seen anybody do long hair the way you do long hair. And he said to me, if I was you, he said, I'd cut everything else out and I'd just concentrate on long hair. And that was the piece of advice I got. And that's what I did. And I remember saying to Sue, who I was working with, Sue, I'm just going to do long hair. And everybody in the industry said, Patrick, this is suicide. You can't just do that. You really can't, you know. And it was amazing. And I was asked to do a big show at the World Hairdressing Congress. This was the very first show that I was going to do long hair. And I remember it was 2,500 people. It was at Earl's Court. I was the second to last show of a 2-day program. The hairdressers were asleep in their seats, and I was doing long hair for it. Didn't have, excuse my French, but I hardly had a pot to piss in, really. And I made all the costumes. I even made all the jewelry. I made everything that I could make. And I thought to myself, you know what? I could have 25 models, or I could have 8 fierce models, that were just the bee's knees. Because everybody else back then was doing shows of 30, 40 models and God knows what and everything. And anyway, so I had 8, I think it was either 6 or 8. I'm pretty sure it was 8 beautiful girls. I choreographed it. I did everything. And as the show started, I chose my music and I came out to ABBA's Dancing Queen. I came out dancing, I came out laughing, I came out speaking, and I was the first hairdresser in the whole exhibition, of 2 days, that actually got up and spoke. I spoke, wow. I laughed, I talked about what I was doing, I explained what I was doing. Each model happened quickly. It was the beginning of my style, really. Each model happened, and at the end of my show, I had 2,500 people standing up, giving me the first and only standing ovation that particular event ever had. And that was the beginning of Patrick Cameron.
I love it. I love that. It's a super inspiring and so interesting that was kind of such a big turning point, not only for you, but actually for the industry in terms of change of style.
Yeah, massive. Because before that, really, people didn't talk. I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but they didn't talk. Sure. They put music on. The music would just pump away. They'd do hair. The camera would come in, go out, come in, go out. So you never knew why they were doing what they were doing. What was the inspiration? What was the feeling? Why did they do that? So you never got that. Whereas with me, you got it in bucket loads. And I always believe that people should enjoy education. They should feel as though they want to come on that journey with you. And I do. I bring them with me.
Patrick, take us into a day in the life in 2021. Like, what does life look like now?
So life looks good. I like life. So 2021, let's just backtrack slightly to 2020, March 2020. As an international hairdresser, you could imagine I was in New Zealand. I'd flown back from New Zealand. Now, bear in mind, I come to New Zealand every year for the last 20 years for 2 months a year. Yeah, I come back. We have a beautiful home out there. I built a home, a Grand Designs. I love it. I come back and I spend my time in New Zealand with my friends and family. So we were flying back, and I got a message. We were in Hong Kong, I think, from my business partner saying, "Oh, the job's cancelled when you get back." That's fine. So I got back into London, got back home, and then I started talking to my business partner, and the emails were coming in, and every job that I had just fell over. Every job fell over. Yeah. And my first day of work was only about 2 months ago in Greece. And I got to Greece to do a show. And about a month and a half ago, I did a big show down there. And then I hosted a big show here in London at the Roundhouse, which is a huge venue. And then I did a little event at Salon International. So 3 events in 18 months. My next day of work is on the 5th of March. For 6,000 people if it comes off. So in answer to your question, what does a day in my life look like? I'm actually in my studio at the moment. I have a studio here, and my digital platform is off the charts now. I'm literally educating digitally, webinars. I'm doing loads and loads of content. My Facebook, Instagram, and all that sort of carry-ons never looked better, really. So for me, it's about being at home now.
Amazing. And how have you enjoyed or not enjoyed, as the case may be, the transition from in real person being primarily? Oh, good. Great. Good for you.
Well, you know what? I'm not one of those people that look back all the time. I mean, it sounds like I am because I'm talking to you and I'm talking about past things. But I'm very much a forward-looking person, and I'm very much the optimist, forever the optimist. You know, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, not a glass half empty. So when March hit, March 2020. I thought, well, I've just got to get on this. I've got to get on this train. So I set my studio up. I cleared my space. I had digital screens made. I've got all my lighting around me. I've got everything in here and ready to go. And then I started broadcasting Education in Isolation on Facebook and Instagram. And we were up to 300,000 people following us around the world, watching our shows and stuff like that. I was doing great education, great content, trying to inspire people, keep people positive. And so that really kept me positive as well. So I was one of the very first to really jump on that bandwagon and say, right, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I haven't stopped. I really haven't stopped. You know, I'm still going. I think I'm up to show 91 weeks I've been doing Education in Isolation. I think I run in conjunction with that an Access All Area members group. And I think I'm on for this 89 hairstyles or 86 hairstyles on that as well, or 82. So I'm continually putting content out there, you know. Even tomorrow, I've got a photo shoot here in my studio with a live model, which is really cool. With the first live model in 2 years almost. Real people. So that's going to be fun.
I love it. Well, good for you. I want to talk a little bit about owners, salon owners, and their journey around long hair. I know for me, I remember a time when I was petrified of long hair because it meant so much, typically brides, and I would take an excruciating amount of time to do it because it needed to be so perfect, put a lot of pressure on myself. And I then had an opportunity from L'Oreal to step in to do some long hair education for New Zealand, which I loved and adored, but I had to pick myself up and remove the fear and get really good at it and practice, which was great. I actually loved it. But I know that fear and worry that a lot of owners have, but also stylists have, if you haven't been educated properly or you haven't, you know, been in a salon that do long hair. And I would feel that as a salon owner, when new stylists would come to work and say, sorry, I don't know how to do long hair. I don't do long hair. And so we started a mantra, if you will. We don't do, I don't do. Like if you come here, we don't do, I don't do. We're a long hair salon. We do long hair, so you'll have to learn. So the fact that I was educating in long hair helped that a lot, and it really became a big part of the culture. But I'm keen to know your thoughts in educating people and how do we inspire a team to get involved in something like this?
Can I tell you, it's easier for me to train a truck driver to do long hair than a hairdresser.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting.
You know why? Because a truck driver doesn't know they can't do it and they'll try it. What happens is hairdressers block themselves straight away. Now, you've got to remember, whenever you're doing long hair, it's always for an event, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a gala dinner, whether it's a something. People don't come in off the street and say, oh, it's Tuesday, I think I'll have my hair put up. They don't. So they come in for an event. So there's a lot of pressure on you already to get that event right, to make sure that it's right. Also, too, hairdressers have got very short memories when it comes to remembering that they were shit at cutting. You know, they were no good at cutting and coloring. They had to learn that stuff, yeah? And so they forget that there was a learning process. They forget that they cut their mother's ear. They forget they cut it too short and they did the wrong haircut. They have this amnesia when it comes to education. So what happens is, how can you compare long hair, which you've only spent 20 minutes in your whole career doing, with something like cutting that you have spent literally 6 years, 8 years, 20 years doing? You can't. So would you just chill the hell out? Just chill out. What you need to do is you need to learn fantastic foundations. As you know, as a long hair educator, it's all about the foundation. You cannot teach an emotion. You can only teach a foundation. It's up to them to find their emotion to take that to the next level. Yeah. And so whenever I'm educating, whenever I'm working, I am passionate about the individual hairdresser's journey. So I have hairdressers that have come to me and just, said that I've taken the fear out of long hair, which is one of my mantras, take the fear out of long hair. And I've just managed to open up a whole new world to them that they were inherently terrified of. And that's with just having a couple of really great foundations. How do you grip? How do you pin? How do you plait? What's the balance of a great hairstyle? How do you work? How do you consult your client? How do you do a beautiful consultation with long hair? All of these things. And the thing that I find hilarious is that if we're truly honest and we look at our client base, if you look at your client base, you will discover very quickly that probably 60% of your client base, if not 70, have long hair. Yeah. So in one way, form, or another, whether it's shoulder length or longer. So we're coloring that beautiful long hair now. We're doing lots of gorgeous cuts on the long hair. We're doing everything with long hair, but still so many hairdressers are terrified of stepping into that fray, of being able to dress it, So really for me, it's about having great foundations, great ideas, great inspiration. Please do look at my Access All Areas. I have over 300 hairstyles available to you that will literally dispel the myth on how to do this, how to do that. And so find great education, really be inspired by great education. And remember, long hair is truly the artistry of our industry. And long hair, more than a haircut or a color, will command an emotion from hairdressers that is unprecedented in every other area of our industry. I can do long hair on stage and have hairdressers who have been hairdressing for 40 years crying when they look at what I'm doing and how I do it. And I tie all of my long hair up with beautiful storylines, emotions, collections that really bring it to the audience. And it's quite the experience for a lot of people that come to see one of my shows.
Yeah, I love that. I want to just touch on, you said about investing in foundation. I think this is so true. And something that I forgot recently, I was asked to do my sister-in-law's wedding and to do her hair. I haven't done hair for 10 years. I'm now a full-time business coach. So I practiced my little heart out, Patrick. And one of the things I had forgotten, of course, is investing the time in the foundation, because then everything else is easy.
Yeah, that's true. That is really, really true. And I think also too, people forget that, you've got to be able to communicate to your client. What are you wearing? Tell me about what you're wearing. What are you doing? What are your necklaces? What are your earrings? Tell me about that. How's it going to fit? What do you want? Do you want it soft? Do you want it chic? Do you want it very elegant? Do you want it classic? There's so many different genres that they can do. But first and foremost, you have to get the client on board. The last thing you do on a very tall girl is give her a high hairstyle. Most tall girls want things, most girls that have got very long hair want very elegant, very chic things on an asymmetric or low into the back of the neck or sitting at the back of the head, nothing that gives them height. Anybody with layered hair often want things that are a little bit softer, very tousled. So they want things that are very soft. So soft hairstyles need a very strong foundation to make them look effortless, So there are all sorts of different ways that I will go into a head of long hair purely and simply through finding out the personality of the client and what they expect.
I love that. It makes me all excited about long hair all over again. All right, I've got one last question, because I know that this is a challenge for owners. In terms of picking up long hair as something to focus on as a team culture and to really step into that and remove the fear from a team. What I adored about what you said is, think about the client and the outfit and the earrings and the inspiration. Where should a salon owner start in terms of building an inspirational, educational journey? If we were at the beginning of a new year, I need to change things.
Do you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I could give you lots of different names, but they've come to me over the years as well. Just come to me. For goodness sake, I've got so much education available to you. Come to me. I'm not going to push anyone else. You know what? If I can't be working in a salon and I can't be working, and I'm here in my studio and have been for 2 years offering incredible education day in, day out and doing stuff, I am not going to promote anybody else, because I ain't working anywhere else. I'm working here, which means I'm working for you in New Zealand, wherever you are. I will work for you. We can do webinars. We can do lots of different things. I do a lot of motivational speaking to salon groups, to students, to colleges, and so on. And so for me, you know, normally I'd always put it somewhere. I'd say, well, go and see this, go and see that. But you know what? I'm at my point of career and saying, come and see me, and I'll help sort you out. And I promise you, I absolutely promise you, I adore teaching, and I adore the individuality of each hairdresser and each journey they're on.
Well, let's talk about that just a little bit, because I want to dig into that. So I want to get a picture in the mind of the listener now. What does that look like in terms of, because the picture I have in my mind is I'm standing in front of my team and they need them to do long hair. So can I bring their team to your platform, and we can learn together and learn together? Perfect.
Listen, I had a platform just a little while ago last year for 750 hairdressers all at once. So I love dealing with 12 hairdressers, 10 hairdressers, 8 hairdressers. We have amazing webinars. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to pull a couple of things down, because I've got my whole studio here. Things like this. Look at this. This hairstyle here took a matter of that. I could teach you that probably in about 10 minutes. You're going to love that. It looks complicated, doesn't it? This hairstyle here I did the other day on screen for my show. Look at that hairstyle there. If you looked at that, all hairdressers I know would take a run at that. Can I tell you, that is literally 10 minutes. And what it is an incredible foundation. Once you get the foundation, look, I can just pull this whole thing out. Look at this. I can just pull it out. There it was. Look at that. All it was
nice, just like that.
Yeah, again, individuality. Now, you see, I would not slap you on the wrist and say, that's a bad thing, you've got to do it this way. What I want is I want you to go, oh my God, I love it like that. And you know what? The minute you love it like that, I've won. And it's brilliant. And what I'm looking for, I don't want to create carbon copies of me. That's a disaster. I want you to be successful. And you are the one, you are my number one. I don't do celebrity clients. I try not to. I find it absolutely revolting and horrible. And because I will tell you this, I hate it when I get asked, who's the celebrity client that you've done? I've done plenty of celebrities over the years, but I don't talk about them because I find them most times quite boring to do, really. So, but my celebrity clients are my hairdressers. Hey, look, you liked it down, but what about if it came back the other way? Why not? Who knows, you know? So again, for me, it's really about just breaking it down. So a webinar with me or education with me would always look from a foundation, and we would go step 1, step 2, 3, 4. And if you're not going to yourself, oh my God, I can't believe I can do this at step 4, I would ask you to get your money back. I will tell you this now. If you came to one of my webinars and you decided you didn't like it, I'd give you your money back, because I tell you what, life, God willing, is for a long time. And I think if you learn one thing in a day, that day has been more than worthwhile. And I promise you, with me, you'll learn many different things. And of course, being Kiwis, I adore you. And you're already up 10 marks before you even start, I have to say, because you know, I have a very strong love for my country.
Amazing.
And
I mean, how exciting!
Because I know you. I know who you are. You know. Yeah.
How exciting, though, that, you know, that we can easily invite you into our world now. Like, we don't have to wait until you come. No. We can actually just have you in our salon any day.
And you know, one of the interesting things is, and the feedback that I continuously get, is people love the intimacy. You know, I'm talking to you now and I feel connected to you. You feel connected to me. We're talking. All because I believe you are here, right there in that little camera. Yeah. So that's who I'm speaking to. I'm not standing here when I'm doing my webinars or I'm doing my shows or whatever, or I'm doing my stuff. I don't think of, oh, how many people am I talking to? I'm only talking to one, and that's the person who's watching me. So my education is very grounded, very real, and I like the interaction. You can type back to me and ask me questions, do whatever. But because I've been educating for so many years, I'll normally answer the question in your mind before you even had a chance to think about the question. Yeah.
All right. Well, as a business owner, what is a quote or a mantra that keeps you as the owner kind of on point, straightforward, out of stressful times?
Stressful times. Well, if they, really, if they didn't want you, then they wanted something else. And I think, I've always thought you're only as good as the last thing you did. I believe that is to be true. I don't believe we should trade on past glories. I think it's about where we are now today and where we're going to. And I think if you think you know it all, it's time to give it up, because it's a pretty rude world to be in, that you think you know everything. So I think that's a pretty bad space to be in if you're a hairdresser. If you've closed yourself down and saying, well, actually, I think I know it all, and so on, then I'd say it's time for you to get out, because you're not absorbing, you're not learning, you're not sharing. And I think if you know it all, you've closed down already, you've closed your lid. And I don't think that's a good place to be, because as creatives, we have to keep on putting things in. And I don't mean that you've got to keep on doing education, but you've just got to be looking. You've got to look at magazines, you've got to look around you, you've got to look, what's that person wearing, what are they doing with their hair over there, I love that over there. So you just keep on experiencing what the world around you. Don't close down. The more you close down, the harder it is to be creative.
Yeah, I love that. Patrick, what is a book, a podcast, some kind of resource, or something that you've looked at recently and been inspired by that you think all owners should get their hands on?
You know what? I love, obviously social media. Let's go to social media. I love my TikTok, bits and pieces, my TikTok, my Instagram, and so on. I'm always inspired by a lot of stuff that's going on out there in the digital world. And that helps me sort of go through. I look at things like the Oscars, the Grammys, the awards, what's happening on the red carpet around the world. That inspires me as well. And often it can be one tiny little thing, because what I'm not wanting to do is I don't want to become a carbon copy of someone else. I want to take an inspiration. Like, to give you an example, I'll tell you now, this hairstyle here was an inspiration from something that I saw on Instagram. And I really loved it, but I didn't like the way that it wasn't secure in the hair. And I didn't like the way that if a hairdresser was selling it, it wasn't going to hold up. Even though the logistics of it, the way it looked beautiful, I knew that the hairdresser doing that, it wasn't going to be going anywhere, because it was just something on a mannequin head. So I took that, I reformulated it, I restructured it, I changed it all, got an amazing result. And so that inspired me. So I'm continuously looking. But when it comes to education, I'll tell you this now, don't hook your wagon to charlatans. Yeah. Hook your wagon to someone who you believe in, someone you know to be a great educator, and then use that as your foundation, whether it's cutting, coloring, or long hair. Use that as your foundational base, and then butterfly off into the world of social media and have a lot of fun. But always come back to a grounded sense of education that you feel as though you're getting from one place, or one or two or several places. Don't continually butterfly. There's so much out there on the wild, wild west of the internet web that you can get so caught up in it all. And please don't be one of these people that think you're famous in your own living room. It's come on. Get real, guys. You need to train, you need to do your things. Don't just get it Instagram ready and then you can touch it all up with all your filters and God knows what. Get your skill behind you, get your trade. You have to remember we're in a digital world now. That equates to people feeling cut off. Mental health has never been as bad as it's been. It's getting worse. We've gone through COVID. We're now looking. Guys, please think the long thought. The long thought is this: the more people cut themselves off from other people, the more important we as hairdressers are becoming, because we are one of the very few touchstones that they will come to and sit inside our space, and we will communicate with them. We will make them feel better, and they will go off from our chair feeling better. Even a doctor doesn't have that power. Yeah, we have the power to share happiness. We have the power to share our creativity. And I'll tell you this now, that is one potent power. And I call it my superpower. And that's what all us hairdressers have, is a superpower to make people feel better. Because I tell you what, if anybody came into your salon and they felt like shit at the end of it, you've done a very bad job. And I would doubt very, very much whether many hairdressers would be in that situation. Why? Because you give unconditionally. You give of yourself, and you don't even know you're doing it. You give unconditionally. We are givers. Yeah. So please put a respect on top of our industry. We are becoming an industry where it's becoming more and more important. And so I implore young people to enter our industry.
Yeah, for sure. I know people are going to come and want to stalk you and find you and learn all about you. So give us your dub and your socials. Where can
Okay,
they
so
come
I'm real
find
easy.
you?
Patrick Cameron Hair will bring you to Facebook, will bring you to Instagram. It'll link through to my internet site, www.patrick-cameron.com. I'm easy. Just type in Patrick Cameron, for God's sake, long hair. You'll find me. Type in long hair. You'll pretty much find me. Yeah. But I tell you what, I am one very proud Kiwi. I'm proud of my country. I'm proud of my hairdressing family in New Zealand. I always have been. And for you young hairdressers that haven't heard of me, sort yourself out and shake yourself down and off you go and look me up. Yeah. Because I am a New Zealander. I'm a New Zealander who has probably done more for the British hairdressing industry and the New Zealand hairdressing industry than anyone in the history of hairdressing, and what I have done and how I have done it. I am proud of that, but I'm proud that I have done it on the back of being a Kiwi. You know, and when you're standing on stage in Moscow on the Kremlin, and you're working in front of 6,000 people and Mrs. Putin's in the audience, and you're doing the whole thing, that's pretty powerful stuff that's going on. So really, for me, it's all about, I'm getting my husband's here. He's saying dinner's ready. And so, for me, that's pretty amazing stuff. And to get standing ovations around the world and to be hailed as one of the world's leading long hair hairdressers is something I'm incredibly proud of. I'm incredibly proud that I've touched so many people's lives and I'm part of their life story. And now you've met me, I'm part of your life story. And, just you Kiwis, just keep it going. Look, I'm beaming.
Patrick,
I can't stop.
Yeah. I really appreciate the time that you're giving us. We will let you go and have a lovely dinner as I go and have my breakfast. Appreciate you. It's been great.
Thank you. Oh, it's absolutely an absolute pleasure, guys. So everybody out there, I'm sending a lot of love all the way from my studio here in London out to wherever you are in New Zealand. Bye, guys.